One quick point with regard to the conscious and the subconscious mind is if you can imagine that this is the conscious mind, it takes in information, and the information goes straight into the subconscious. And the subconscious mind has two major parts, but let's just say that the bottom part is inaccessible information. These are things that happened and took place at a pre-conscious level without you being aware of them, which you can never access. You can't go back to infancy and find out what they are. But my feeling is it's like concrete that's cracked. And the concrete that's cracked, you can actually fill the cracks, like with a sealant, by driving this command, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself, into your subconscious mind. What it does is it affects and changes everything else, all of your other subconscious programming, but it also goes in and replaces and fills those cracks that in your psyche and subconscious going back from infancy where it may have caused you not to like yourself. So the power of those words repeated, it's almost like an oil well where they drive down a hydraulic fluid that goes deeper and deeper and fracks and goes into it. So as you drive that command, I like myself, into your subconscious mind, not only does it change everything else in your programming, but it also goes back and it heals the old negative ideas that may be holding you back. So I just thought I would mention that for you. All right, now this next chapter, this next session is really, really important. We call this your taking charge of your life. And many people who've come to me all over the world and say, you changed my life. And I say, it was because of this, wasn't it? And they said, yes, that's what changed my life. This is where we talk about that valve that may be reversed. And if the valve is reversed, what happens is you could be living actually a good life. You could be having a great life, but you could have, or an average life, but you could have just one concept, one idea that is wrong, and it could be holding you back from achieving your full potential. Remember, our great goal in life, my great goal, is to fulfill our full potential, to become everything that you are capable of becoming, and whatever you've accomplished up to now is merely a hint or a shadow of what you're truly capable of. Many years ago, there was a woman who grew up on a farm, and she didn't get past the 8th grade. Then she got married off to a local farmer's son, and she had children. And when she was a little girl, the age of 16, she got married at 16 or 17. She was a little girl. She liked to draw pictures. She liked to paint and draw pictures. And of course, that was tomfoolery. She was a farm girl. Farm girls married farm boys and raised farm kids and worked the farm. This is the beginning of the last century. And so she did. And some of you know who I'm talking about. So she went back to work. She'd always had that sort of fantasy in the back of her mind of doing little drawings. And she and her husband raised several children on a scrubble farm back in Pennsylvania. And she worked hard, and they worked hard her whole life. And then their children grew up, got married, and had children, and they had children. And finally, at the age of 65, 66, her hands were gnarled. She had arthritis. And her doctor told her, you can't work anymore. You can't work the farm anymore. You just can't be working 8, 10, 12 hours a day. And besides, you got a Social Security check. They had never made any money. They'd scrabbled and mucked their whole lives. You got a Social Security check. Why don't you just back off? You know, you're older. You're worn out. In other words, you're not going to live that long, so you might as well enjoy what you have. So she said, well, to herself, what she'd always wanted to do in her life was to paint. So she got her first Social Security check, and she went into town, a small town, true story. She went to an art store, and she told the person that she wanted to paint. And he was very sympathetic to her, little old grandmother, farm woman. And he said, sure. He said, well, let me help you, and I'll get you some basic paints and some basic easels and things like that. So he got her set up, and she took this stuff back and set up her little easel behind the barn, and she began painting little pictures of the farm. These became known as primitive rural American landscapes. It's a whole new category of painting that was pioneered by Grandma Moses. She started painting in her late 60s and early 70s. When she was 99, they had a showing in New York at one of the great galleries of a set of original paintings from Grandma Moses. Her paintings at that time were selling for $350,000 a piece, and they were being snapped up as fast as she could paint them, 1 or 2 per week. Now here's the interesting thing, is that she had within her natural ability. She was never trained as a painter. She had a natural ability to put the landscapes on the canvas. And when she began painting, she earned more for one painting than she and her husband had earned in a lifetime of working that Scrabble farm. One painting. And they said that if she had started painting at the age of 16, with her natural ability to paint, she would be in the same category of Michelangelo and Bottolini and some of the great, and Rembrandt and some of the great painters of the world. But at the very least, she would have been worth millions and millions of dollars. Been one of the wealthiest painters in the world because she had this natural ability. So why am I telling you that story? Well, it's the same story about the goat farmer who was on welfare. Sometimes deep within yourself, you have the ability to do something quite extraordinary. Emmett Fox called this your heart's desire. And he said your heart's desire calls to you. But what stops us is mental blocks, almost like gates or grates that block us from going after our heart's desire. And so let's see if we can just get rid of those blocks so that there's nothing in front of you. It's like a football player that catches a fumble and there's no players in front of them. It's a goal to go. And they just runs in an open field. So, taking charge of your life. One of the most important decisions you ever make is to move from child to adult. We're conditioned from infancy to see ourselves as children. With children, there's other people in charge of our life. They make our decisions for us. They tell us what to eat and when to eat. They tell us when to go and when to come. They buy our clothes for us. They take care of us and so on. So we are conditioned, if we're not careful, we're conditioned to see that we are provided for by people other than ourselves, and that we're told to go here and come there and go there and do this. We're conditioned to feel that we're supposed to be told what to do by big people, by other people. Most people never get over this. They never make them move from child to adult. And when they grow up, they think that somebody else should be taking care of them, a boss, an employer. Soon, and the worst of all is a government. The government should be providing for me. And I don't care how they provide. It doesn't matter what they do, but I think they should provide for me and take care of me. And so we remain children all our lives. Steinbeck wrote a story many years ago, which I was required to study in high school. It talks about a young man who now has to make a big decision. And she says, her friend says, but he's only a boy. She said, a boy becomes a man when a man is needed. I've seen boys 40 years old because a man was never needed. And it's the same thing. A woman becomes a woman when a woman is needed. And there are women 40 and 50 years old because a woman was never needed. They would continually look for someone else. So we say the slogan of the totally responsible person is, if it's to be, it's up to me. If it's to be, it's up to me. We do not look to other people as the solutions for our problems. And what we do is, Henry Ford said, never complain, never explain. In other words, if you're not happy with something, change it, but don't complain about it. Complaining is a sign of weakness, but it's also a sign of victimhood. A person who complains is saying, basically, I'm a victim. I'm a victim. Somebody was talking to the actor who plays Aaron in 24. I had lunch with him on Tuesday with Nathaniel Brandon. He was saying, and he's become a speaker as well, he's saying you can always tell when people have their lives out of control when they talk about what things that are being done to them. He did this to me. She did that to me. They did this to me. The company did this to me. He said they're always saying, I'm a victim. I'm weak. I'm little. I'm ineffectual. I'm a child. I'm a victim. I'm a victim. Please feel sorry for me. And what this does is that it guts your self-esteem. It just takes away all your motivation and all your self-confidence. So even the choice of words can be very bad. So we say there is a deep valley between maturity and immaturity called the valley of excuses. And this is one of my contributions. And we say that in life, you come to this valley, this canyon, and on this side is childhood and immaturity. And on this side is adulthood and maturity. And this is the canyon. And you come to this point, and you have to make a decision to take the big leap. But what most people do is they take the leap tentatively, and they try to cross the canyon of excuses. And this is the canyon of excuses. They try to cross it in 2 jumps. And they end up in the valley of excuses. And the valley of excuses is one of the greatest obstacles to success in adult life. We make excuses. I often say that the 80% of the population goes to someday I'll. Whenever they think of a change they want to make in their life, they go to someday I'll. Someday I'll do that, and someday I'll write that down. And someday I'll buy that book. And someday I'll upgrade my skills and lose weight and get out of debt. And someday I'll change my lousy relationship and so on. And then they end up in the valley of excuses. So your job as a fully functioning adult, when you reach here, is to make a leap to the other side. And once you made a leap to the other side, there's no going back. And this leap of accepting total responsibility for your life is scary. And that's why most people don't do it. It's also exhilarating because it liberates you to say, I am in charge of my own life. It's me that's in charge. So your job is to leap over the valley of excuses, accept total responsibility for your life, and never go back. And never go back. So we say that, we say, yeah, I hope I'm not getting ahead of myself. The disease excusitis, which is an inflammation of the excuse-making gland, is invariably fatal to success. The reason that people don't succeed is because they have excuses. You cannot imagine a leader weeping, whining, crying, and making excuses. As Mark Twain said, there are 1,000 excuses for failure, but never a good reason. So one of the things we do is there's no more excuses. Either do it or don't do it. Get in or get out, but I don't make excuses. And so we say number 6, acceptance of responsibility is not optional, it is mandatory. I mentioned this before, but I cannot be too emphatic, is that you can only give away control. You cannot give away responsibility. You remain responsible for yourself for your entire adult life. You can give away control by trying to make someone else responsible for your life, and you do, and then you wait for them to tell you what to do or what not to do, or to give you a raise or to promote you or demote you or hire you or something else. Or you can accept responsibility. And accepting responsibility is mandatory. You cannot go any further. You are literally blocked in place, almost like there's a wall in front of you, until you accept responsibility and make the leap and never make another excuse. So we say that the word responsibility can be broken down into 2 words, response and ability. It is your ability to respond. The challenge response theory of history is a fascinating part of history that I came across in studying the work of Gunnar Myrdal, who got an Academy Award for his work. He said that every civilization in history, put this down, I don't want to push that button. All right. He said every civilization in history began with a small tribe sometimes as small as 3. The Mongol Empire, which was the largest empire in the history of man on earth, which extended from the Sea of Japan all the way to the Danube in Europe and all the way through the Middle East and all of China and half of India, started off with 3 people. Genghis Khan, whose name was Temujin, his brother, his mother Bortai, and his brother. Doesn't escape me. Anyway, there are 3 of them. The tribe had been wiped out. They ran into the Gobi Desert and hid. And what Temujin did was he sought out the tribe of his, and so what happens is every single tribe that became an empire started off with a major challenge to which they had to respond effectively. Well, this was a major challenge. The tribe was wiped out. So he responded by joining his uncle's tribe and becoming a valued member of his uncle's tribe. And if you respond effectively, the empire would grow. If then that tribe was attacked by other tribes, if they responded effectively and won, then the empire would grow again. As it grew, it would keep bumping up against other tribes and other kingdoms, and there would be conflict. And if they reorganized and responded effectively, they would grow again. And this would continue, and it would continue until they no longer were able to or had the will to respond. All of the last 26 civilizations in history, 25 collapsed from within. The 26th great civilization is the American civilization. And they all collapsed from within because they became weak